Hi there! You're about to listen to a vintage episode of the Under the Microscope podcast. While the content is still as relevant and as interesting as when it was recorded, our webpage has changed. You can now find us at thesciencetalk.com/real-scientist-nano. Welcome to Under the Microscope. This series is brought to you by the Real Scientists Nano team. Our goal is to provide a platform where scientists can communicate their work and interact with the public. With that in mind, every week we introduce you to a scientist working in the field of materials and nanoscience, who would be curating the RealSci_Nano Twitter account. Hi everyone. Today we have with us El-Abed Haidar, who is a PhD student at the University of Sydney in Australia. Hi El-Abed, how are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me. How are you today?
I am great and looking forward to learning more about your research and your scientific journey and everything about you. Because the short podcast gave me a glimpse into your research a bit, and I think it's super cool and super amazing. So let's start by understanding your career so far. So tell us about your scientific journey so far.
So, my scientific journey started in 2009, where I really was aiming to become an electrical engineer. I was accepted in the Faculty of Engineer back in Lebanon. It was in the Lebanese University, which is the top notch in the Middle East. However, that journey did not take too long. It just took one semester to knock me out because the competition is really hard. And the lack of university experience, you can notice that there's a difference between high school experience than university experience, where the mentality actually changes. But I took that as an experience and moved on to physics because physics really is the closest to engineer. And from there, I actually finished my bachelor in physics in the Faculty of Science in Beirut, Lebanon, at the same university, Lebanese university. And then the next step was I really wanted to do a PhD in physics because I just loved studying. I was always a nerd. Yes, nerds are cool also. So we wanted, so as myself, who was always a freak when it comes to study, I wanted to actually know the world of research. And the way to do this was not to stay in Lebanon, and the only way was actually come back to Australia, which I was born here in 1992, but we went back in 2000 and lived most of the life in Lebanon. But now I'm back here, coming back to the 2013 where I actually started my journey. I was accepted as an honors student at the University of Sydney in the School of Physics, where I started working in the lab for the first time in my life as a proper experimental lab in nonlinear optics. And from there, we actually learned how optics, where people think it's just about reflection, refraction, and total internal reflection. Well, really, there's a second part called nonlinear optics where light actually behaves very weird. Let's put it this way. And with that being said, I was able to finish my honors degree with a nice project, but it was not complete because the time limit was really short. It's not really a year. That people say it's a year, but it's barely like 8 months. And as a result, we discussed it with the supervisors and thought that the experiment itself needed a proper theory. No one actually did that. So we moved, as in my master's, I got a second opportunity to actually prove myself. And I was able to actually publish my first paper in 2016 about the theory of what happens when you merge two nonlinear optical phenomena, one called full wave mixing and one is SPS, stimulated Boolean scattering. As a result, that led to a really nice theory paper. I'm maybe going too details here, but the main thought is that that perseverance is always around in research world. And the reason I'm mentioning this is because once the what I got my master's thesis, I still was not done. However, the supervisors and I decided that we kind of had to take our own ways. It was a long journey, and there's nothing new really to work on. So that's when I had to look around again. And again, that's kind of the type of perseverance I have in my heart. And that's when I actually met Professor Catherine Stanfield. But in late 2017 to early 2018, and she really liked my perseverance and my work ethic. And she was the head of the condensed matter theory group, and part of it was material science. And that's where the PhD world actually life started. From there, I got to know my other co-supervisor, Dr. Sharif, who was actually part of the Real Science Nano a couple of months ago. I'm not sure if I'm going to say this 2021 or early 2020. And he was really, as his tweets with the Real Science Twitter account, he was really an exciting and supervisor to work with alongside Professor Catherine. Well, she doesn't like me calling her that. She likes to call me to call her Cathy. And from there, we were able to actually work on moletronics, which is the term of molecules and electronics. And for the first year and a half, that was mainly what I was working on. And from a year and a half till today, I'm working on two-dimensional materials, which you mentioned in this short talk, and what happens when we twist them around. This is my last year, and hopefully I get to finish up with a nice paper and a nice thesis.
All right, sounds good. It's quite an exciting journey you've had. Good luck with finishing your thesis. And your papers as well. And the next question I have for you, I mean, you did touch upon it a little bit in the short podcast, but where does your current research fit in this big picture of materials and nanoscience?
So material science or material physics, material science is, again, the study of trying to explore either new properties of the materials we have in the real life, or try to actually create new materials, at least in the theoretical part.
Right.
But currently, there is a real life scenario where we have, like we talked about graphene, twisting graphene, and you get subjectivity. The question I was aiming for, which I actually gave a talk in the APS March meeting, was what happens if we twist graphene and phosphorine? Because one interesting paper back in 2015 was the phosphorine was able to receive electrons from graphene.
Right.
Just by putting them on top of each other.
Right.
Theoretical work, and there was some later on experiments working on that.
Right.
That was important because phosphorine is weak when it comes to the world itself, because if it's exposed to any chemical or any atmospheric pressure, it collapses. So graphene can play the role of a protector.
Right.
And so what would happen if we actually twist it? That would be another step.
Right. So it's graphene and phosphorine. Sorry to interrupt you, because we're trying to understand where does your current research fit in this big picture, so that the focus of your work is on graphene and phosphorine, and with those you are checking what is feasible by putting with the twist, basically, so that the experimentalists can know.
Twisting exactly the graphene, a bit of angles, several angles on top of phosphorine to see what will happen. Will there be any charge transfer? Will there be any electrons going from one to another? We found with the twist angle, without any electric field, when we twist it, the charge transfer is cut off.
Okay, that's really interesting.
Exactly. So that was that breathing moment. and when you apply a different electric field, at some point, the one without any twist, at some point it will, because of the electric field, it actually cuts off.
Right. So would you say this is the project that you are most proud of, or is the most one of the most fun one or the quirky one that you're explaining it to us in super simple words here? Is that
I'm
the
trying to
project?
explain it. When it comes to favorite projects, I don't have any, because every project I give it to
Oh, come
100%.
on. No, there has to be one, El-Abed. Come
I
on.
really I never had this. Honestly, I never had. So when I started the PhD, it was about moletronics. So mainly we sandwich a molecule in gold, and we wanted to see what happens if we apply a battery around that system. And as a result, we can actually, if we play around with only the hydrogen atoms of this molecule called azylene quinine, we actually could, the molecule acts as a switch. If
Okay.
switch on, switch off. If I play around with a hydrogen, if I put them down,
Right.
if I put them inside the molecule, they actually switch on, while if I put them over, they actually switch off.
That's really interesting. Wow.
And yeah, that led actually to two papers, because another paper was what happens if we include boron or nitrogen into that molecule itself. Some of the results showed a bit higher current, some of them were made it worse, which is what research does. Sometimes you get better results, sometimes you just wish you never did it again.
Right, right. That makes sense. So from talking to you so far, I get the feeling that you really love the research aspect of science. Well, what I want to know from you is, what else do you like about being a scientist? I mean, research is, of course, a huge part of it, but there are other aspects of being a scientist. So what else do you like?
I like the fact that I'm able to teach students around in words, because if you want want people to enjoy physics, which is really hard, especially in Australia, people like try to run away from physics. If I actually convince one student, even once per month, that hey, physics is not that scary, it's actually fun.
Yeah.
We have a lot of fields in physics we can actually enjoy it. I
Right.
would be happy. So to answer your question in one word, teaching.
Teaching. Oh, that's really cool. I'm glad we have scientists like you who enjoy teaching, because that helps also with nurturing the next generation of scientists, creating the next generation of scientists. So this is really great. And speaking of next generation, I have a question for you. You can answer it in any way possible. There are two ways. Either you can go back in time. If you were to go back in time and starting over, what advice would you like to give yourself? Or stay in the present, and what advice would you give to the scientists who are starting out today?
So the advice always, 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 when it comes to research, and I wouldn't give it to myself because I actually followed it for once and actually read the literature. Stay outside the box. Go outside the box. Don't stay inside the box of the research world. Try to see what the real world of your field is about. If you just read Wikipedia, even if you just started with Wikipedia, that would be the one step. You'd find one article there cited, start from there. It's a journey. You're gonna go from one article to the other, and then you're gonna find out that you have no idea what this word is, and that's what that you're actually a researcher, because you're gonna always look around. You can always look around, and you can always read more, read more, read more, to find out like, wow, this is a bigger word than I thought. That's how research works.
Right.
That would be advice. Just read around, even if, and you try to be flexible. Don't stick yourself with just one field. If you can try actually go outside the box, try to read some. When you become a researcher, reading becomes a part of you, and it allows you to actually be flexible in even your research role.
Right. Yeah, those are some really good pieces of advice that you have gathered along the way, so to say. That sounds good. So, El-Abed, I hope your research experience so far has been wonderful. It sounds like it has been wonderful, and I hope it will continue to be wonderful if you were to decide to stay with the research. Um, Having said that, if you had three wishes to improve your research experience, what would you ask for? And I'm not promising anything here, okay?
When it comes to research, you always wish that you have more time. Or even
Mm,
if I'm talking in a PhD, you always wish you have more time because I would love to actually have all the time in the world to actually dedicate the time with the research. Um, so that because always as researchers we're always a bit concerned about publishing papers, getting more work out, but
right.
you face time is just standing in front of you, just waiting to make your life miserable. So I wish there was more time for that. Second, I guess wish would be, I wish if I'm talking in my field itself, I wish we actually have an experimental lab to actually try the systems that we're talking about in our
Mhm.
own lab, where we can actually go to the lab and say, okay, I'm putting graphene and twist. I want to twist it, see how it goes. And I have all the facilities in the world,
Right.
like MIT or Oxford University or so on.
Mhm.
Uh, Third, last but not least, the wish would be to really find a postdoc position that I really like.
Okay, very, very fair wishes. I hope they all come true. I wish I could just grant them like this, that tomorrow when you wake up, El-Abed, everything's going to be exactly how you like, especially the last one with finding a postdoc position that you like. I would, I will keep my fingers crossed that it works out for you. So this has been wonderful talking to you, learning about your research, learning about you as a scientist. But before we let you go, one last question for you, and that is 2020 has been a very interesting year. We all learned and unlearned a bunch of things. So, would you like to share some of your learnings from the year 2020?
Of course, it allowed me to actually take care of my health more. Be unlike what people would have done, stick their faces in food. I actually took care of myself even further. It allowed me to actually have a bit of more time with the family.
Mhm.
Uh, around the family, especially in lockdown. I know people would just get bored. That we actually got a bit closer when it came to family.
Mhm.
Uh, and last but not least, it allowed me, well, I guess like everyone else, I get to know what Zoom is.
Yes, that is true. That is true. So, thank you very much for sharing your learnings as well. And this has been wonderful speaking with you. Looking forward to having you on Real Scientist Nano. I love it.
Thank you very much. I'm really looking forward to taking over Real Science Twitter account.
Super.
Thank you for listening. To know more about us, please visit our website realscientistsnano.org and follow us on Twitter at realsci_nano.